Red Cloud's webinar featuring Japan Gold Corporation, a TSX V-listed exploration company that's focused on exploring and advancing a number of high-grade epithermal gold-silver prospects on the island of Japan. We're pleased this afternoon to have with us the chairman and CEO of Japan Gold, John Proust, with us today to provide us with an update on the recent activities of the company in their efforts to move their portfolio forward in this on a number of prospective targets. My name is Ron Stewart, and I'm a research analyst at Red Cloud. I'll be your host for this afternoon's webinar. We invite all of you to ask questions during the presentation. To do that, simply go to the comments box on the right-hand side of your screen, type them in at any time, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the presentation. Now, during today's webinar, the company is going to make some forward-looking statements. We direct you to have a look at their disclosure statement on page 2 of their investor deck, which you can find at www.japangold.com. I'd also like to point out that this presentation is for information purposes only and not a solicitation or recommendation from Red Cloud to buy or sell securities. Any participant that's interested should rely on their own research and seek their own professional counsel before considering any kind of investment. Finally, you can find all of our coverage on Japan Gold and among others at www.redcloudsecurities.com. Please note and review the disclosure statements within our reports as well. And with that, I'm going to pass the call over to John to take us through the story. John, over to you.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm well, and I appreciate you making those opening remarks. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. If I sound a little tired, I'm a bit jet lagged because I've just returned from a month in Japan, where I was in 12 different cities on 11 flights and went back and forth across the whole country several times, going from the north where it was sub-zero temperatures right down to the south where it was plus 20 degrees. So again, it's not unusual for this time of the year to be like that, but it just continues to demonstrate to me what a remarkable period or what a remarkable country it is, and all the different zones that it covers. While I was there, one of the primary reasons was to meet with all the stakeholders across Japan that are involved in our activities, and those really cover the central government and the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, and the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestries and Fisheries, but also the prefectural or provincial governments. And then in addition to that, you have local governments, you have mayors of local towns, local communities, town councils. And then in addition, you have forestry departments, and you have the federal forestry departments, and you also have the local forestry departments. So there's a whole range of groups that you meet with, and we've been doing that for over 10 years now. The important piece there is that by establishing yourself as a long-term first mover in Japan and building on these relationships, you're able to accomplish things that really have never been accomplished before. And I'm just going to take you through a few of those things today. So I'd like to talk to you about that and an update. And then I'd also like to talk a little bit about the Barrick Alliance and the end of the Barrick Alliance at the end of October, and what that means for our company going forward, and how we expect to see 2026 unfold and beyond. So I'll move through some slides for you now. And I'm just going to go here. So as Ron mentioned, forward-looking statements are here for your review. I'm going to really get past the basics. This is our presentation, our December corporate presentation, which you can find on our website. But I suffice to say that I'm comfortable with the audience understanding why we're in Japan, that we're the first mover based on the change in the 2012 Mining Act that ultimately allowed foreign companies to come into Japan through Japanese companies that we wholly owned, and to, in our case, take a significant stake of the mineral rights or the prospecting rights across Japan in the key gold districts. So the thesis is always clear. I think we've repeated this many times, but the history of high-grade gold mining is one of the top items for us. There's a history there, but because of the 1943 closure by the government, there's this wonderful opportunity that's been preserved for us over many decades now. There's the opportunity to identify silica-rich ore, which translates into vein material, and send it directly to smelters, which really precludes the construction of large capital expenditure processing plants, and allows the company in that instance to directly ship their ore to smelters that are around Japan. And there's 5 very large copper smelters and a number of other smaller smelters. There's significant infrastructure. So Japan as a country, after the Second World War, really took it upon themselves to put infrastructure throughout the country, notwithstanding the fact that a number of areas are very depopulated. So that gives us great access to our projects throughout the 3 main islands. Geopolitical safety continues to be one of the top rationale for investment globally, and Japan is one of the safest jurisdictions in the world. We talk about low environmental impact, and really that's taken from several different viewpoints. But again, if we can direct ship ore to a smelter as opposed to building processing facilities, that really reduces your footprint to small, high-grade underground gold mines. And of course, mining friendly. The government has changed the Mining Act to include us in the country as foreign companies coming in with wholly owned subsidiaries there. So we find it to be a very mining friendly jurisdiction. Again, our first mover thesis is very relevant here. We've assembled an outstanding international team to take this opportunity on. We've de-risked our portfolio by bringing in major mining companies and large international investors. And we have prepared a comprehensive technical database. And I think that's really where I'd want to pause, first of all. So as many in our audience realize, in 2020, we formed a strategic alliance with Barrick Gold Corporation, as they were called at the time, now Barrick Mining. And the thesis for us was very simple. We're first movers, we're project generators or prospect generators, and we wanted a large partner to come in and advance our enormous portfolio in the country. 2020 was a time when we had a competition of several different mining companies that were interested in being our partner. And ultimately, we shortlisted it to 3, which were Newmont, Newcrest, and Barrick. And we ultimately selected Barrick because Barrick, of all 3 companies, committed to do a review of all of our projects across Japan, to evaluate all of our projects across Japan at their cost and to their standard. And to me, that was a very important piece to underpin the portfolio that we'd assembled, and to really give us a viewpoint on the prospectivity there. So with our view coming into Japan, we wanted to look as much of the whole country as possible. We have over 3,000 square kilometers of prospecting rights or prospecting right applications. And so Barrick, the Barrick Alliance, which concluded recently after 5 years, was really broken down into 2 parts. The first part, which ultimately extended to approximately 3 years, was Barrick fully funding the evaluation of our projects, as I mentioned, and really assembling a first-in-class database of geophysical and geochemical information across the country, to the tune of $23 million, a $23 million expenditure by Barrick. Now, in many countries, and certainly first-world countries that you look at today and that I've been in, when you come to the country, oftentimes the Geological Survey or the government will provide you with a database on a memory stick or a CD that has all the fundamental information, mapping, geology, geophysics, geochemistry. And so you can move in a more advanced way across your holdings. In Japan, that really was not available when we came to Japan. So we needed to build that database. And so again, it took us approximately 3 years. The second part of the alliance with Barrick was really the last 2 years. And by funding the $23 million database that we have today, Barrick earned the right to select projects across our portfolio that met their tier 1 or tier 2 potential for discovery. They ultimately settled on 3 projects, and we expected and we had hoped for very large budgets to be designed for those projects and really advancing them, in a very significant and meaningful way towards discovery. Unfortunately, with Barrick's business plan evolving over time, there were limited dollars being put forward to fund the types of work programs that we needed. And so at the end of October, and about a month before when we announced it, we concluded the Barrick Alliance on a mutual agreement, because our view was that if they really wanted to discover elephants in Japan, they needed to bring out an elephant gun. And unfortunately, we were not seeing that level of expenditure, and management was not prepared to increase that level of expenditure. So we ultimately parted company, but we parted company with Barrick exiting without any rights to any projects in Japan, and no back-end rights in the future. And so Barrick exited Japan, but we were left with this incredible database, which has really helped us focus in on areas of Japan which might be ripe for new significant discoveries. So I wanted to explain that to everybody listening in today. The second piece that I wanted to explain about that was that once we made that announcement, and following the Precious Metals Summit at Beaver Creek, where we met with 6 other mining companies, we started to get a lot of inbound interest in what we were doing in Japan and what opportunities might be available for other collaboration. And so we're very gratified with the inbound interest, and that's something that we're still advancing and considering now. And so I'll move on with my presentation, but I just wanted to pause with those comments, and I'm happy to take any questions at the end of the presentation today. So we certainly see enormous exploration upside because of the hiatus in exploration in Japan since 1943. We have built a team in Japan that's second to none, really, with our geologists, our field assistants, our permitting team, our administrative group, and our own drilling division. And so we're actively advancing, and we're prepared to partner with any new entrants that might be appropriate for Japan as we seek to advance our portfolio. We've talked in previous conversations or webinars about the history of Japan, and I just want to underscore this very, very briefly for you. So prior to 1943, in the 500 years of gold mining in Japan, there were a number of gold mines that were developed, and the largest ones are highlighted on this slide. There were 6 of them, and they ranged between 900,000 ounces and up to 2.5 million ounces. And these were very shallow mines, and they were mines that were basically founded on quartz veins that had poked out of the ground that prospectors had found over time and then ultimately mined. So that was the range of what you would see prior to World War II. Now, the search space for us, when you consider this history, is really looking around these old mines and seeing, are there any concealed veins that maybe just didn't come to the surface, but might be parallel to the veins that were mined historically. And so that's one search space. And you could think intuitively that, the target that we might encounter would be 1 million ounces to 2.5 million ounces. And so we set our minimum threshold of 1 million ounces at 7 grams, which was a reasonable number to put forward. And quite frankly, 1 million ounces at 7 grams in Japan today, if we are fortunate to find those 1 million ounces in quartz veins, which is what we're searching for in Japan, we could ship that material to a smelter. And if we were mirroring the Hishikari mine, which I'm going to talk about on our next slide, the only operating gold mine in Japan, if we were mirroring its all-in sustaining cost, it would be about $500 an ounce. So an incredibly profitable operation. So even 1 million ounces would be an incredible advancement for the company. Then, of course, you go much later than 1943, all the way up to 1981, when the Hishikari mine was discovered. And again, I love this photo because it just highlights what a small footprint that mine has in a beautiful valley with rice paddies and a stream and nature all around. So it's a wonderful setting there, but it's a little bit deeper, and it's 14 million ounces. Now, the interesting thing about the Hishikari mine is it did not appear at the surface. So this isn't a quartz vein that was sticking out of the ground. This is a concealed ore body that was somewhat accidentally discovered by the Metal Mining Agency of Japan, or the Geological Survey, back in 1981. So this presents a second search space for us, which is a little bit deeper, but it's under an area of Japan, and much of Japan is like this, that has a layer of younger post-mineral volcanic cover. And so we liken that to a blanket, a thin veneer or a blanket across the landscape that obscures any veins poking out of the ground. Underneath the blanket in this area, they discovered 14 million ounces. And so this is something that's such a relevant search space for us. And the scale of this kind of discovery really is a focus for our business. So I'm going to jump through a few slides, and this, by the way, is the smelter that Sumitomo sends the Hishikari mine ore to. This is the Sumitomo smelter. So it's this scale of infrastructure that already exists in Japan and that is quite desperate for the silica or flux from a gold mine that's a vein style of mine, because that's necessary as flux in the smelting process. So I'm just going to move forward just a little bit farther to the various areas of Japan. And we're going to go down to the southern island of Japan, which is Kyushu. We're going to look at the southern gold district, the Hokusatsu epithermal gold district. And then following these slides, I'm going to pop up to middle Kyushu, to the middle Kyushu epithermal gold district. But the Hokusatsu is the most important district in the country. The Hishikari mine is highlighted there with the mine marker, and the red outlines are our project areas. On the left-hand side here, we've highlighted the mines, not including Hishikari, but the other 4 mines that were the vein style of mines in this area. Yamagano at 1 million ounces, Kushkino at 1.8 million ounces, Okuchi at 700,000 ounces, etc. So I'm going to blow up that slide, or into the next slide, I'm going to blow up that Hokusatsu area for you now. So here's the Hokusatsu area that we were just looking at. There's the Hishikari mine. There's the Sumitomo Metal Mining footprint, the owner of Hishikari. And the blue areas, of course, are our project areas. Not including the Hishikari mine and the red mine marker that you see there, all the other mine markings that you see here are veins that were poking out of the ground. And if I added up all their historic production, it would be about 3.5 million ounces of gold. Then you get to Hishikari, and that's a 14 million ounce ore body where they've already produced just on 9 million ounces at in excess of 20 grams per ton. A lot of the rest of the blue area is similar to the Hishikari setting, where it's got that thin veneer of volcanic material sitting above it. And so our objective is to look under the volcanic blanket and to identify where more Hishikari mines could be located. the way we do that is we use geochemistry, and very subtle geochemistry. We call it a geochemical fingerprint. And we use geophysics as well, where we're penetrating into the ground looking for certain features. And that helps us do two things. It helps us compare the Hishikari data, and then it helps us look for areas where we can potentially replicate that data in this area. So our two priority targets are directly north of the Hishikari mine on the Abino project area that's highlighted with the gold oval, and then south of the Hishikari mine, the Mizobe project. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit more about those two projects. So the Mizobe project to the south, and this cross section is a reasonable characterization that we're constantly advancing to with more data as we assemble it. So more drilling data, to be specific. But if you look at this cross section here, you can see the gray area that's at the top of the cross section. That's the volcanic material that came in after the mineralization had been established. So this is the post-mineral cover. And then we're putting drill holes beneath that to see what we can find. And the first drill holes we drilled here were quite shallow because we wanted to understand the geology and what we were locating there. And more recently, we've drilled, and what that information told us was that we were at the very top of a system. So we were seeing mineralization in all of our holes. We drilled 7 holes. We saw gold in 5 of the 7 holes, but it did tell us that we were high. We needed to go deeper. So more recently, we've drilled 2 holes under these 2 drill holes that you can see that are highlighted here on this sketch. We've drilled deeper, and the projection is that we're hoping to encounter veins that are maybe not quite erupting at surface or that are buried under this cover. So that's what we're doing now. We've drilled 2 drill holes. We expect all the data to be in December, and we expect to put out our results and analysis early in January. So that's the timing for the Mizobe drill holes. And so I know there seems to be a lot of anticipation around those holes, but that's the timing that we'll expect those in early January. Just to zero in on this particular area, if you look at the sketch on the left side, this is the Mizobe area. In black, it highlights the drill holes. There's black drill holes, the 7 holes that we drilled over quite a wide area. You can see that this sketch is about 4 kilometers by 3 kilometers. So it's quite a large area. And the drill holes that we've permitted to drill in the more recent campaign are the red drill holes. And we drilled hole 1 and hole 2. And we'll get those results. And then that will determine what we do with hole 3 and hole 4 in terms of are we drilling in the right direction? Are we drilling deep enough? And a number of other factors there. Now I'm moving north of the Hishikari mine to our Abino project. And the Abino project is outlined on the left side, a left sketch here in black. And just south of that, you can see the Hishikari mine. So this is a compilation slide of a lot of work that we did with the Barrick Alliance to identify what does the Hishikari mine look like and where on the Abino project do we find the lookalikes. So we found the Masaki area, the KZ area, and the Otsuka area, and those were the those are the prospects that we identified with Barrick on the Abino project. Now, unfortunately, the only Abino drilling program done by the Barrick Alliance, funded by Barrick, were 3 very shallow holes, one into the KZ prospect and one into the Otsuka, or 2 into the Otsuka prospect. These holes were very shallow, and while they identified the geology and where we were drilling, they basically gave us an indication that there wasn't the type of mineralization in that geology, but it gave us an indication of where we would want to go. So this is something that we are very much taking on board now in terms of new drill targeting. But probably more importantly, we had not gone into the Masaki area, and you can see in yellow the scale of Masaki. It was sort of being left to the end. And so what we've just done is brought in an international mapping expert named Nick Tate, who's a consultant that is very, very specialized in coming into areas and looking at breccias and other materials while he maps a specific area. So he's just finished a mapping of the Masaki area, and we're just in possession of his report and are analyzing that. But we're feeling pretty optimistic that this is going to yield significant drill targets for us to look at in 2026. And again, just to now look at that same area and expand that a little bit. So in blue, you can see the Abino project area. You've basically got the Masaki, the KZ, and Otsuka prospects, but you can see that trend continues on to the Tabaro prospect, which again looks very significant. It's just outside the Abino project, but it does show a trend that's moving to the northwest. And it parallels a trend, which is the Hishikari mine, the Okuchi mine, and the Fuke mine. So there's a parallel trend there. And so this is something we're looking at very carefully to, again, give us more information in this area, and again, how we would target our next set of drill holes. I'm now moving up to Middle Kyushu, and I've really got two things to talk about here. One is that in this Middle Kyushu epithermal gold province, which is outlined in purple, we have two project holdings. The North Tayo project sits directly north of the Tayo mine, the historic Tayo mine, which was a past producer of just over 1 million ounces. We see an awful lot of quartz and silica strewn across this North Tayo area. We haven't spent an enormous amount of time there, but we do note that the North Tayo project does have the type of silica or quartz that might be relevant for smelters use. And it just so happens that about 100 kilometers to the east is, in red, the Saganoseki smelter, which is operated by JX Metals. And they are a smelter which are in need of silica, and they'd like it to be gold-rich silica, in which case you could ship your material over to the smelter. They would utilize the silica and would stream off the gold and return 90 to 95% of to the supplier. So there's opportunities there for commercial arrangements, and that's something that's an ongoing set of discussions. Beyond that, we have the Bajo project, and this is one of my favorite projects in Japan. It's one of my favorite projects, and I'm just going to blow this Bajo project up for you to show you why. So the black outline shows you the Bajo project, and what I like about the Bajo project is, first of all, the Bajo mine itself produced just over 400,000 ounces of gold, and it's highlighted here with a mine marker. Over 300,000 of those ounces of production were from one 6-meter wide vein with grades of approximately 125 grams per ton, which is just an extraordinary ultra-high grade number. Now, what we're doing is we're looking around for other potential veins that are in this similar setting. We think that we may see an extension of those veins going here to the southwest. So you can see in a black oval here, that dotted oval, that we might see an extension to the southwest. But what we're also seeing is over in the far west, we've now identified 10 veins at surface, 10 quartz veins at surface. And what's interesting and unique about this area is this pink color represents the basement, which is the older rocks, and they're in this area made out of granite. So what you, without getting into a deep technical discussion or description, but you basically have deeper, you have these granites, and then sitting on top of the granites, you have andesites. And the gold is sort of trapped between, or in the andesites, and between the andesites and the granites. And so that's very clear over the Bajo mine. And over in the west, we're now finding windows of granite over here, just at the north under the label there. There's two pink areas. So we've seen these. So our thesis is perhaps there's granites that are sitting under this whole West Bajo area. And this could be a very good opportunity to make new discoveries. So what are we doing? Well, in January, we have our consulting geophysical providers, Zong from Australia, coming in and doing a 3-dimensional induced polarization geophysical program across these areas, which will highlight our drill targets. And then we'll be getting after drilling here. So that's very exciting for us. The other interesting thing about this project is just east of the Bajo mine is a second mine called Shin Bajo. So in Japanese, Shin means east. So it's the East Bajo mine. And it was an antimony mine. Now this mine operated only for about 5 years in the 1940s during the war, and was fully closed in 1952. But it did have ultra high grade antimony. And of course, antimony is a critical mineral that's very much sought after for a variety of reasons, whether it's ballistic materials or fire retardants, etc. And there's a real protectionist attitude around the world now, where people and countries are holding on to their antimony supplies. So Japan is one of those countries that needs antimony, and we're delighted to have identified a high-grade past-producing mine on our project area. So that's something that we need to further evaluate. I'm now going to take you all the way up to Hokkaido in the north. You can see in the inset map of Hokkaido, that's where we're looking at today, and you can see the area is in white. I will point out, and some of you may have heard today, that there was a significant earthquake in Japan. And the earthquake was centered right where my cursor is, right in this bay just to the south of the island of Hokkaido. It was about 7.2 to 7.6 on the Richter scale. Japan has, they say, an earthquake every 5 minutes in Japan. So not unusual to have an earthquake in Japan. This one was larger than some of the recent ones and the regular ones, et cetera, but Japan is very well equipped and seismically extremely knowledgeable about the activity there. Anyway, moving on with our project area, in the larger box, you can see the blue project areas, which are our projects. This whole region is really centered around the second largest past producing mine, the Konami mine, which produced over 2.3 million ounces and is just to the north of our project areas. And so we kind of break this region into a couple of things. So one is, just like the Hokusatsu region in southern Kyushu, we call that a district. So that's a 40-kilometer north to south district. It's about 15 kilometers wide. In this area, in Hokkaido, in the gold oval here, is the Akutahara district. And it's about 25 kilometers north to south and about 20 kilometers east and west. And then we have some early stage property off to the far west over here as well. So this is a very, very important area for us. And I'm going to show you that a bit more in an upcoming slide. And then we have some individual projects. So just to put it in perspective for you, as Barrick was evaluating all of Japan, the Ibetsu project was one of the top projects that they had identified across the country. We've done an enormous amount of work with Barrick there. We think there's drill targets ready to go. We're just finishing up some final permitting there, but we think this is a very compelling area of Japan that needs to be advanced. The Sanru project to the north of us, again, looks very interesting. One of the larger past producing mines here. The Sanru mine produced 225,000 ounces. We surround that mine and we see potential for vein extensions out to the east. And then finally, we have the Hakuryu project. And that's the one that's been subject to a lot of excitement through the Barrick Alliance. This is a project that we advanced very quickly through the permitting system in Japan. And we put 3 very modest drill holes into that at the end of the Barrick Alliance. So if you look over to the left-hand side, this is a blow-up of that project area, the Hakuryu project. And so what I want to tell you here is that the initial discovery was made in this box, a small box where my cursor is highlighting. And it's actually just where the 3 drill holes were drilled that you can see and I'm sorry this is not blown up more for you, but this is where the 3 drill holes were put in place. Now, these 3 drill holes in total were just over 560 meters, so less than 200 meters a drill hole. And the results, while we were permitting these 3 drill holes, first of all, we did a drone survey. So we put a drone up in the air and we flew magnetics over this region. And so we flew from the northeast to the southwest, and these red blobs appeared. And so just to give you a sense, from where my cursor is now down to the southwest, that's about 5 to 6 kilometers. And so a very significant area of magnetics lit up. That notwithstanding, Barrick went ahead with these 3 drill holes just at the northern sort of tip of the potential anomalous area. One drill hole drilled outside the anomalous area, so it had no results. A second one was very, very shallow and had just a very modest result. But a second one from that same drill pad, the 3rd drill hole in the area, was just a little bit deeper. And ultimately, we encountered 0.5 meter at 24 grams per ton. So we were able to identify the formation and the horizon that was the gold-bearing horizon. What we're working on right now, and we hope to report soon on, is a geophysical survey that we're now doing across the large red feature that I've pointed out. And this is a geophysical survey that consists of controlled source audio magnetotellurics, so it's called CSAMT and AMT, that really focuses us in on and gives us a view on where the very best targets across that region are going to be for further drill programs. So again, I hope to report that back to the market soon on how we're advancing there. But we've been moving right through winter conditions in this area. And again, that same geophysical consultant, Zong from Australia, have been very, very active in the area. We've been completing over 30 line kilometers of geophysics here, which should give us some very, very important information. Now moving over to the area that I highlighted as a district, I just wanted to point out again that there's been an awful lot of gold discovered in this district. This district is 25 kilometers north-south and about 20 kilometers east-west. All the mine markings that you see here are historic mines, and there's over 30 of them that were closed in 1943 and never reopened after the Second World War. We've come into this area, we've done an enormous amount of work, mapping, geology, geophysics, geochemistry, and we've done some scout drilling to identify the potential. We've identified high-grade, ultra-high-grade gold in the north. We've identified gold through the central region, and then we've identified gold and silver, high-grade silver, as we move further south through the area. The dotted black line really is the fault, is outlining the fault here that is allowed for this endowment of precious metals in this area. So this fault has basically opened up the pathway to mineral-rich fluids to flow up closer to the surface, concentrate their gold, and distribute it through the shallower formations. So blue is the deeper basement, and then as it's come up further, it's come into the pink rhyolites, and then finally closer to the surface, right up into the volcanic material that's closer to the surface. So this is a very, very compelling area. The reason I talk about districts is when I talk about mining companies that are interested in Japan, I want to focus them on our portfolio, not as a portfolio of 26 projects, which sounds like an enormous number, but really in just a handful of districts. This is a district, and this is a very compelling size project or district area for a large mining company. And then likewise down in southern Japan, as I pointed out in Kyushu, we have a district scale opportunity down there. And then we also have some individual projects that I've been highlighting for you as well. I'm just going to run through because I know we're getting short of time. Here's a beautiful drill core that we, from the area that I was just pointing out to you, that we mined about 2 years ago now, or a year and a half to 2 years ago, as we were putting scout holes into the area. Again, we're prospect generators. We've generated enormous prospects across the country. We've got district scale land packages. Our portfolio is second to none in the country. Our database is supporting this portfolio with data compiled over 3,000 square kilometers. We've built an incredible in-house team that's capable of taking this forward. We've been able to move forward quickly with our drills, and we would like to really accelerate that now. So our scout drilling programs that we've completed to date are approximately 22,000 meters of drilling. And the statement is clear at the bottom of this slide. We're seeking partners to advance our drill prospects. And just by virtue of the level of interest that we saw at the Precious Metal Summit, I'm really looking forward to 2026 and how that might unfold. We've got a great management team and an excellent board of directors, a very diversified board of directors with very diversified skill sets, but an awful lot of expertise in Japan. We've got an exploration team in terms of our management that's supported by the heads of 2 companies, global exploration groups that have significant familiarity with Japan and the style of geology in Japan. Our share structure, again, 63% of our shares are held by institutions. So very unique for a public company, a junior public company, to have the confidence of institutional investors to that scale. Newmont owns 8% of our shares and is, as always, a very interested shareholder. We've been able to gain the benefit of the Barrick Alliance funding of US $17 million or $23 million Canadian. And we've also been able to secure the royalty sale with OR Royalties, previously Osisko Gold Royalties, to advance our projects as well. So we've been well funded through non-dilutive financing, and we have great support from our institutional investors. The Osisko Gold Royalty sale, by the way, just to quickly review that for those of you that are not familiar with that, are approximately 1.5% net smelter return royalty, or NSR, that was sold to Osisko for $5 million US. Osisko has a further option to add a 0.5% royalty in 2026 in February, which would be great to have additional dollars in our treasury to advance the portfolio. Again, why to invest in Japan? I think I've covered that in the 2 slides previously, but there's that rich history of high-grade gold mining. So you can't deny that there's significant gold in Japan, and that we've identified the search spaces in Japan around historic mines and also deeper with the 14 million ounce Hishikari mine at very high grade. The low geopolitical risk really supports the thesis. Very underexplored. We've de-risked it, as I've mentioned, with the institutional and industry participants. We've put a team together to do that, and we're poised for 2026 to do multiple drill programs to really now start benefiting from the database that we have to make new discoveries. So that's the conclusion of this slide deck. And so what I'm going to try and do just before I break for questions is I did something a little bit special today. So I've just come back from a trip to Japan. So I've been there, as I mentioned, for a month. And I just wanted to give you a visual of who we are in Japan. And I always talk about our base in Hokkaido in the north and our base in Kyushu in the south. And so I'm going to give you just a quick slideshow to show you what we've got in Japan. This is a slideshow from my recent trip to Japan. Sorry, just let me try this one more time here. Unfortunately, I'm trying to blow that up a little bit more for you, but hopefully you can see the images that I projected here. We're getting a little bit of pushback technically. So here we are in the Tokyo office. So we have a small office in Tokyo and a very, very important, I would call it a special forces team in Japan. So in the photo on the left, there's myself and 3 of my fellow directors. So Dr. Keiko Hattori is to the right in my photo here. Takashi Kuriyama, the former head of Sumitomo Metal Mining's Global Exploration Group, and then Ian Burney, the former Canadian ambassador to Japan. Dr. Keiko Hattori, of course, is a very well-known tenured professor from the University of Ottawa, and we're delighted to have her on our board. In the smaller photo, that's part of our office team. We have Masato Kasui, who's our general manager of the office in Japan. He runs our office. We have our senior advisor, Yoshio Nojima. And we have Thomas Hamai, who's one of our senior geologists and community liaison. And then we have accounting staff, as well as Tatsu Yamaguchi, who is just in the back here, PhD economic geologist, who is a paleontologist, but is also very active with us in the field, but also helping to lead our permitting team, which you see to the left. And then finally, you have Yuki Aida in the far left, who helped design our proprietary software system that manages all our prospecting rights and prospecting rights applications throughout Japan. So moving on from that, now we're going to move up to the north to the Hokkaido base. So here we are on the Hokkaido base. We have a large modern house, which has offices and workstations and meeting rooms on the main floor, accommodation on the second floor. And this base is populated with three large warehouses, or we call them D-sheds. So we'll look at those. So we'll look at shed number one. And besides shed number one, we have a rectangular building, one of several that we have, which are our field offices. They're mobile field offices. You can see the inside of a field office that we take out to various sites where we do our drilling work. In the photo on the bottom left, you can see shipping containers, which contain our drill rigs and other equipment and consumables. And then you can see shed number one. So there's shed number one, and let's go inside shed number one. So inside shed number one, we have two things. Down the left-hand side, we have what's called a slab library. So here we take rocks from all of our projects in Hokkaido. We slab those, we cut those with a rock saw, so we can actually see the characteristics of all of rocks across all of our projects in the region. And then laid out on the table here is drilling core from several of our drill programs. Now we'll move into shed number two, and I'll show you what's in shed number two. Similar things. So on the far left, you've got under the blue tarps, you've got lots of drill core that's stored there from prior drill holes. And then you've got a whole variety of drill core laid out at tables. And then you can see some of the slabs that are laid out on the table that's in the foreground here. Now we'll move into shed number three. And shed number three, similar things. There we are in shed number three. Again, a lot more slabs from our slab library. And hard to tell, but on the left, in the orange coat with the black Japan gold toque, is Fraser McCorkadale, carefully looking at our slab library in that particular area. Now we're going to leave the cold climate of Hokkaido. We'll move down south to Kyushu. Here's our office in Kyushu. So in Kyushu, just like in many areas of Japan, large portions of the population base have moved to large rural towns and cities, and so behind they leave various infrastructure. This particular infrastructure, we laugh about this a little bit, is a pachinko parlor, which is sort of like a casino for Japan. It was left behind, and so we converted it into our Kyushu base. And I'm going to take you through the base first of all. So the large building is the office space. The building that you'll see behind is our core shed. And the small inset on the right here is just the side view of the office space. So let's have a look inside the office space. So we've repurposed this completely at a very modest cost. And so we have our main office, meeting areas, workstations, etc., maps laid out. Then we go over to our core shed, and our core shed inside, again, very similar to the north, where we've got lots of core laid out, different maps for our various project areas. We've got various displays of our samples, our slabs from our projects throughout Japan here. And then when the core comes into Japan, our drilling core, it moves into a building, which is the small building on the right, the shipping container on the right, which is where the inside looks like this, which is where the core is cut. So meter-long lengths of core are laid down on this orange core cutting saw, and the saw cuts it in half so that we can send off half to the lab and keep half for our records. Then we go out into our yard, and we've got a laydown area. You can see more drilling core there and pipes for various purposes. And then we go further to this white building, which is our new core library, which we're just building right now, which will be able to showcase all of our activities throughout the whole country. Basically $23 million of work in rock slabs that showcase all of Japan. It's really second to none. Beyond that, we've got houses that are accommodation for our drillers and geologists. And so that's a good setting for our team members to be located in. And finally, we are in the area I've mentioned volcanic material, and this is taken from not far from our base. So I'm up on a hill here, and I'm looking out, and there's a layer of cloud. And beyond that, you can see a volcano that's sticking above the cloud, and you can actually see material puffing out of the volcano. So this volcano is called Sakurajima, which is translated as basically Blossom Island, is what it's called. But this volcano for centuries has been puffing away smoke, but it's an incredible feature. And on a clear day, it's really, really amazing. But I thought this was a very interesting looking photo for you.
I have a few questions that I'd like to ask about just about the logistics of working in Japan. You had mentioned that you have prospecting licenses. Are they, how long do they last, and do they allow you to do basically everything from an exploration point of view?
Yeah, excellent question, Ron. So there's two things that we have. When we apply for areas in Japan, we call those PRAs, or prospecting rights applications, and that's like staking. So just simple like staking. So once we apply for a prospecting right application and it's received by the government and accepted, then those areas are preserved for us and nobody else can come into our areas. And when we have them under that designation, we can do mapping, geology, geophysics, geochemistry to evaluate those areas and determine what we like. And those blocks, those prospecting rights applications, are a maximum of 350 hectares each. So a project area or a district might consist of tens or even hundreds of prospecting rights applications, and they're all individual blocks. Now, when we want to go into one of those blocks and we want to drill, then we request our prospecting right to be granted. And when a prospecting right is granted, then that allows us to trench and drill in those areas. And we have 6 years to do that. You have 2 years and you can extend it twice, and then you can carry on. At the end of the 6 years, you've got three choices. If that prospecting right didn't work out to your specifications, you can just relinquish it. If you have advanced it all the way to a point where you think you'd want to convert it to digging rights, which are mining rights, basically. So you want it to go into a commercial operation, you can convert it to digging rights. And at that point, you can, those are often given for lengthy periods of time, like hundreds of years or in perpetuity. Or you can go to the middle segment, which is you can continue to explore it. So you'll go forward and you'll apply to continue to go forward as a prospecting right to explore.
So within the concept of exploration, and most of us have some familiarity, you kind of want to move your drilling around, and it's an iterative process. You're going to drill a hole here and then reassess and drill a hole there. So would you apply for multiple opportunities to drill on a number of different license areas, and then you have the flexibility of going wherever you'd like to within that context?
Ron, you're absolutely right. It sounds like you've been sitting in my office. So basically, there's if you can think of an enormous spreadsheet, let's think of an enormous spreadsheet so you could have everything in Japan on there, and then you've got your priorities. Right. And so what you want is a pipeline. So you want to have a series of projects that are ready to drill today, and some that are going to be ready to drill, and some that are being further evaluated. And as you go through that process, some things go to the top of your list and some things don't.
Correct.
So you move those priorities around. And so you've got something that's constantly evolving. Now, what you have to add into that is seasonality. So up in Hokkaido, we like to operate there from about April to about December, because then there's a lot of snow and it gets darn cold. And so we could operate there, but we'd rather not. And so we try and get our work done through the warm months, and then we try and permit through the winter. Kyushu, on the other hand, where we've got that whole Hokusatsu region, good all year round. You're in a subtropical area, so it's great. So that's exactly what we do, is we line up a whole series of projects. And then what we also do, one step further, is if we're permitting in an area, we'll permit multiple drill pads for success. So we might go in and drill from a couple of drill pads, and then based on the success there, we'll move to other drill pads in that area in order to streamline our process and continue on. Our rigs, we have 4 diamond core rigs. They're very mobile in the shipping containers that I showed, so we can move them around wherever. Basically, we have 2 in Kyushu and 2 in Hokkaido. And, unless we need more elsewhere, that's where we keep
and
them.
They are your rigs.
We own so we found that in Japan, there really weren't drilling companies that had the capability to drill there, because they hadn't been doing it for decades. So they really had antiquated equipment, or they didn't necessarily have the skill set to do diamond core drilling and hard rock mining. And a lot of the drilling companies that do exist in Japan are subsidized in the geothermal industry. So they're kind of tied up over there. So we bought 4 of our own diamond core drill rigs. We built our own drilling crew of over 20 people, and we had them licensed and got them visas to come into Japan and to run our equipment.
Good for you. Just in switching topics a little bit here, in the context of the geology of Japan, where you've got epithermal gold, silver vein systems, those are usually outboard of big porphyries. Is there work being done on copper porphyry and high sulfidation type systems in the same kind of areas?
Absolutely. So I was part of a, so first of all, let me go right back. There's never been a porphyry discovered in Japan.
Really?
Okay? There's never been a porphyry discovered in Japan.
Well, there's one there. Why? There's got to be one there.
Well, exactly. So I was at a conference some time ago, and some of the world's porphyry experts there, and they were, divided in their opinions. And these are very well-known international names from that had come there. Sure. And some said there's no porphyries there, and there was a very complicated technical explanation. And others said we think there are some porphyries there, and maybe they're a little deeper. And no one's, I'll say, no one's been brave enough to test for them. So that's something that we're constantly looking for, because you're absolutely right that epithermal veins usually sit on top of porphyries, and we see advanced argillic alteration, which is like a lithocap, which sits on top of porphyries.
Absolutely. So what's the age of the whole Japanese archipelago? What kind of age are we talking?
These are kids. It's very young. So up in the north, up in Hokkaido, you may be looking 12 million years, coming down to 7 million years. Then you get down all the way to the south in Hishikari, 1 million years to 500,000 years. These
That's
things
okay.
Are
Lahire is being formed right now. Lahire down in the South Pacific, in New Guinea, and I worked at Porgera, so I'm really quite familiar with the island art kind of architecture and opportunity. So this is really very, very young.
Very young. And so if you look at the Hishikari mine as an example, very shallow, 200 to 300 meters. Okay, and so it's just down 200 meters to 300 meters, and it's about 2 kilometers wide.
Right.
Okay, 40 veins. the water down there is 65 degrees Celsius,
Correct.
the water temperature.
Yeah.
So innovatively, Sumitomo Metal Mining pipes that water out of the Hishikari mine in big pipelines to the neighboring communities for their onsens, for the hot baths in the neighboring communities.
Sure.
Yeah, Harry Young says it's forming now. No question.
Listen, you and I could go on for a long time. I'm sorry. I just find this really interesting. We did have one question that I just wanted to go back to from one of our listeners. Was interested in the all-in sustaining cost number. I think you said $500 an ounce.
Yeah, that's right. So that the Hishikari all-in sustaining cost is approximately $500 an ounce, and the global average, that's the cost to produce an ounce of gold. That's $4,200 today. The global average all-in sustaining cost today is between $1,500 and $1,700
it's
an
actually
ounce.
1,745 because I did that research and whatnot. So I agree with you. You're right in the ballpark there.
Right. Thank you. Okay,
exactly
perfect. Right. So the reason it's cheap, Ron, in Japan, and this is it's very interesting and it's very unique to Japan, is that because the smelters in Japan don't have domestic supplies of silica except Sumitomo's smelter, which gets the Hishikari material, they need supplies, and they'd love to have domestic supplies of silica. So I've met with all of them, and they say, look, if you open a mine, a high grade, underground, shallow underground gold mine, and it's a low grade epithermal, blast the veins, bring the material up to the surface, maybe crush it, and then they'll take the ore away from there. Don't build a production facility. And so they take the whole ore away, they add it to their smelters, and the silica is flux. And what flux does in a smelter is it's a heat modulator. So it keeps the smelter temperature, constant. And then it's also like a magnet or a sponge. The deleterious materials like iron and stuff kind of glom onto it. So they're able to, go through the smelting process more. So it's actually, the waste from the gold mine is actually valuable in the smelter. So they'll give you 90 to 95% of your gold back.
Wow.
And so all the sustaining costs are incredibly low.
So John, just to jump around a little bit, I've got one more question that I really have to ask. With so many closed gold mines that have been shut down, as explorationist and guy in the industry, we always look at old mines as, can you resurrect this? Why wouldn't you go in and actually acquire the old gold mines and look for extensions of known vein systems and known reserves?
Yeah. So Ron, here's an amazing statistic for you. There are 64 closed gold mines in Japan today. Now let's define what a gold mine is. So a gold mine is working, so it could be two cooks in a coffee pot up to 10,000 people. So it's a real range, right? It's a real range.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And I've been to many of these, and they're either behind bamboo screens or they're behind steel walls and steel doors. All right. Of those 64 mines, we have 47 of them under our project areas. 47 of the 64 closed mines are on our project areas. I have a prohibition where nobody can go underground, none of our team members, because they're so old and I'm unsure about the stability underground that you wouldn't want to go there. And so what we've really tried to do is the temptation, and it sounds easy. Go open an old mine. For us, we're looking for a bigger prize and a more sophisticated prize, which is, these are great indications. I mean, there's clearly gold mines there. So there's gold in the system. So look back at the surface and try and find the best areas where those are maybe just the little things that we're poking out of the ground. But is there a porphyry? Or is there some sort of an area where there's a larger deposit of gold beneath those? And that's been our thesis.
No, listen, I understand. And I just had to ask, if you look around in Canada or in Nevada and whatnot, a lot of the newer mines are old mines that have just been resurrected and rethought. But what you're doing, I suspect that this is not a matter of if, it's just when. You are going to make some significant discoveries and whatnot, and congratulations on the work that you've done. Good luck going forward, and we look forward to hearing from you in the near future with some more success.
Well, thanks, Ron. And I'm going to let you know just one other final little point that I think is really interesting. While I was in Japan, NHK, which is the national broadcasting group, like CBC in Canada, reached out to me and said that they were doing that they would like to do a documentary, and that they were going to film a documentary, and they'd like to include us in that documentary. And basically, the documentary is a documentary about the price of gold is really high. How is it impacting Japan? You know, when this has been dormant for years. So while I was in Japan, a camera crew and producers shadowed me for 7.5 hours one day to go with me in the field and to go with me to our base, et cetera, et cetera. And that piece is going to come out on December 16th. And what I found was really incredible is that so many people in Japan have no idea that this endowment exists and that there's any opportunity there. And when I looked at just generally, and I spoke with NHK about the statistics of how many people would actually watch this program, they said, oh, well, this program is the most watched program on NHK World. And so they estimated that over 20 million households would actually be watching that program on December 16th, which I thought was incredible. So if Japan and the general Japanese population wasn't aware of this opportunity, I think there'll be a greater awareness now. And there's such a propensity to gold in Japan.
Yeah.
You know, people, you know, there's a history of gold, and there's a real value and need of gold in Japan. I think this could be a very interesting opportunity and a wonderful opportunity that I was delighted to have to educate a broader audience in Japan.
And that's quite a retail shareholder base that you're reaching.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Listen, John, I think we should wrap it up on that. Thank you so much again for your time. Look forward to talking to you again in the future.
My pleasure to speak to you. Have a nice week. Thank you. Take care.